Oh gosh, Rivals, unsurprisingly, has the exact same problem Overwatch did. Did you ever feel like you're doing fine and then someone hits you with some random stat and says you're awful? Not to mention the fact that they are ignoring your other better stats? Well, let's talk about why the Marvel Rivals scoreboard is absolutely meaningless and a trap for bad players who don't understand the game.
Bro, I'll tell you why it's meaningless right now, bro. These stats, they're important, right? Like they matter, but they only tell you about 25% of what actually happened in the game. Because, maybe they're making plays that they're not actually using those stats enough just because you have low damage. Like you can have, for example, I've had it where I've had 30 kills, but I've had lower damage than other people. Because you can, say you're doing more damage, right? That's usually because the enemy team is either tanking it or healing it. Where if you have more kills, then you're executing them fast enough, right? Now, that doesn't mean that damage numbers don't matter, and that doesn't mean kill numbers don't matter, but it's like there are tons of games. Like I've had tons of games where my team wins and we're like all like 10-2, 8-1, like that's like the average score, right? And then the enemy team is like 40 kills for like 30, like I guess 8-2 is probably not bad. Like, more like, I'm trying to think of like a number more, but the point is a more accurate number would probably be like they have 20 kills and we have like 10 to 12 kills per person, and then maybe like 3 or 4 deaths, right? That would add up, right? So because usually you can share kills and stuff too. So let's say that's the scoreboard, right? They're on the losing team, yet their stats are better, their kills are better. Shouldn't they have won the game, right? No, because they're not playing on the objective. What actually matters in these games, unless you're playing TDM, is the objective. And a lot of people don't play on the objective. They just sit back, worry about their KDA, and they don't push onto the objective. Like I had so many games where I'm playing tank, I'm on the objective for 20 seconds. Like, that's not over exaggeration. 20 whole seconds fighting for my life by myself, waiting for my team to push with me. Finally, they show up and then I die. Like, bro, what is this game? But it's just like people do not know how to play the game, and they don't know how to play around the objective, even though literally Overwatch was the same. But I guess in Overwatch, it kind of felt more like kill focused, where I feel like, I don't know, I feel like there's way more counterplay in Marvel Rivals than there was in Overwatch, but maybe that's just me.
Marvel Rivals scoreboard lists 8 different metrics. Before we move on to why this system of measuring player worth is not only inaccurate but unfeasible, and why the way players actually use it is even worse, let's address each of these numbers individually and why they are absolutely meaningless. Starting on the left, we have eliminations. This number, which is for whatever reason treated like the most important stat, literally just refers to how many people you dealt any amount of damage to before they died.
This is literally what I tell people and they don't believe me. They're like, no, you actually have to kill them and all that stuff. And no, you don't. That's why there's this thing called eliminations. And then there's this stat thing, like, if you go to, I think it's also somewhere else, but if you go to like, your proficiency or whatever, like Knight, Captain, Satyrian, Lord, like that whole thing, right? Your like character mastery. It literally says get this amount of last hits with the character. And then there's also a separate one saying kills. Kills and last hits, they're different. Kills meaning eliminations. They're different because eliminations just means you could have helped to get that kill. Now assists, it's really hard to like differ between assists and eliminations, because if you just hit someone, you get that elimination. That's why a lot of healers, if they're healing you, they get the assist and the elimination, which is why their stats are so like huge. Because if you're healing someone or adding any support, whether it's a shield or I'm trying to think, what are the other ones? If you turn them invisible with like Moon Knight, like if you use your Moon Knight invisibility, I think that gives Dagger assist with any kills you get in that little invisibility thing. Like there's all kinds of different things, right? The point is, like, that's how it works. Like assists are using supportive abilities to help get a kill, and then eliminations are you either kill them, last hit them, or you did damage to them within like the last 5-10 seconds. I think it's 5 seconds.
If that sounds like a great thing to keep track of to you, keep this in mind. If you want to get the highest eliminations on your team, Literally, all you have to do is repeatedly tap everyone on the enemy team with damage over and over.
Yeah, just play
If
Midnight.
any of them happen to die, bam, there's an elimination. It doesn't matter if you dealt 2 damage or 200, you're going to get an elim for that. The scoreboard doesn't care. Now, skipping ahead a bit, on the flip side of this
Overwatch
is
was the
damage,
same too.
another stat people pretend is the most important. But again, this is easily manipulated. For this one, all you have to do is find the easiest target with the largest HP pool on the enemy team, like the Hulk for example, or Thor, or just any tank without a barrier works great, and spend the entire game shooting them. It doesn't matter that you are feeding the enemy Luna and Mantis massive amounts of ult charge, or that your damage isn't translating to any kills, you're still listed as the carry in the endgame scoreboard.
Yep.
So then, if both of these are easily manipulated and meaningless alone, doesn't that mean that together we're able to understand the match better then? Not really. If you really want to farm both these metrics without truly contributing to your team and escape the blame since you get great stats, here's all you have to do.
Yeah, before he goes on and tells you how to cheap your way and farm like you do in Rainbow Six Siege with the scanner points, basically, all I'm getting at, this is why stats are 25% of what actually matters in a match, because your stats can be easily manipulated. Now, yes, if we're talking about like a genuine match where, you know, they are actually trying to go for the people and they're not just focusing the tanks or whatever, like obviously even then, like they can be skewed because maybe the person isn't doing their job and they're just hitting the tank a lot, whatever, or they're doing something else, right? Like a million things. Like we're not gonna sit here and yap about that for an hour. Point is, if you are looking at just stats, that's not going to tell you the full picture. You need to actually have awareness in these games to win and to actually like figure out what's going on, right? And to actually know what your team is doing wrong. That's why strategists are really good at knowing like every little thing you did wrong, right? Which you shouldn't be overcritical either, but getting to the point, this is why like a lot of people will be like, oh, my team did nothing, it's you know, not my fault, and then they look at their stats and their stats reassure them of this, you know, idea that they're better than everyone else. But then if you actually look at your gameplay, like watch your gameplay back, you literally did nothing. You were a useless team member, and the only reason you got kills or damage was just because, you know, this person was getting the kills and you assisted on it, but that counts as elimination unless, like we said, it's a supportive ability.
Make sure you deal small amounts of damage to all players as often as possible, but focus your primary source of damage on that earlier stated easy target high HP pool character. So long as you're giving the other 5 players light taps on the shoulder every few seconds, your elims will probably keep pace with the rest of your team, and you can focus the rest of your firepower on farming damage off one of the tanks. Congratulations, you're now the most valuable player while systematically throwing the match.
Yep.
Why is this important though? Because it shows that there is not a logical through line connecting these stats and actually benefiting your team. Overwatch had this exact problem, but they had one underused system that actually fixed this dilemma, but we'll save that for after we address the other stats. Next, let's address assists. Funnily enough, nobody ever talks about this stat for whatever reason, but in reality it's very akin to the eliminations stat. Essentially, you just need to provide either debuffs or CC to whoever dies, or buffs to whichever of your teammates gets the finisher. This means that, again, all you really need to do is continuously throw out your buffs, debuffs, and CC toward wherever there is most likely to be an elimination, and you're guaranteed to stack these up. It's a bit less brain-dead than elims, but it's normally the same general principle, where your actual level of contribution doesn't matter, just that you were there at all. Let's move on to deaths. Deaths are, again, one of the most mentioned stats, and while
I'm gonna be honest, I think assist stat actually makes more sense though, because it's not like the damage stat where you can just damage anything. Like if you are supporting your team, right, then you are getting those assists and you are helping the team win. You know what I mean? Like you're not feeding anyone, you know, you're not like feeding them damage to then so the healers can heal and then get their ults faster, and you're not like, you know, wasting your role as a DPS, not getting like not eliminating anyone from the team fight. Because as a DPS, your goal isn't to do the most damage, your goal is to eliminate people from the team fight so your team can actually win and secure the objective. So I feel like assists aren't really like, that's not a negative thing.
I do think there is a tiny bit of merit to them, as deaths do indicate two important things. It's still baffling why it's considered so important. Said things indicated are how much ult charge you're giving.
Yeah, because to be fair, deaths don't really matter in this game either, because it's not like League of Legends where each death makes the enemy stronger. Yes, deaths like mean how many times you got taken out of the fight, and that's kind of bad for your team, but sometimes you have to die in order to take the objective. Because say you run to the objective, it's about to be lost, right? You get on there, you hold it like as a last stand until your team gets back and you die. That death was more meaningful than 5 kills because you held the objective. Do you know what I'm saying?
The enemy team without giving any to your healers, as well as how often your team is waiting for you to push. While these are both important, they are both not exact measurements, as you can cause both of these problems without dying, as well as the fact that deaths, unlike the rest of these stats, do not have any implication toward contribution. While stats like damage and elims are easily manipulated and don't give an accurate look at what actually happened during the match, they do at least indicate some tiny amount of information about something resembling player contribution, even if inaccurately. Deaths have absolutely no indication about how much you're contributing to your team, and don't give an accurate measure toward how much you are hindering them. Maybe you're playing a fast character, so you get back to the fight quicker, or maybe you aren't dying at all, but you're still farming health packs instead of letting your healer get ult charge. Even more damning, however, is that sometimes you should be dying. Whether it's dying on the point to stall your opponent's progression, or throwing your body at the point in overtime because nobody else can touch in time, or even just committing fully to the fight to make sure your team has every ounce of value they can get for this critical fight, there are moments when you need to be willing to die for your team to succeed. But some players genuinely avoid these moments solely to preserve their KDA, which makes them look better on the scoreboard but actively hurts their team. No, this stat is awful, one of the worst. Let's move on to healing. Healing is very like damage in how it can be misinterpreted. Sure, healing your tank that's throwing himself into damage constantly is good for your team so he doesn't die, but supports who care to look around and give heals to smaller health pool characters like backline long-range damage players are incredibly valuable, even if the scoreboard favors the supports who don't do this. Healing is yet again an easily misinterpreted stat, and to go along with it, the way people treat it like it's the only meaningful stat on support is appalling. No, just because Strategist A has 200 healing more than Strategist B doesn't mean Strategist A did better. Strategist B might have way more assists and insanely more damage, but somehow most low-ranked players still think any stat other than healing on a support is just meaningless or bad. Small tip? That's not even remotely how it works. If your support is finding other ways to contribute while still healing, even if it's a bit less than your healbot teammate.
Yeah, see, the way I use stats, like this is the only time I flame a healer, is if I did not see them heal at all, or like heal very low, or if I saw the team not having a lot of sustain, and then their healing stat is low, then that tells me, you know, oh, you are bad at healing or you're not doing your job. How I view stats is if you see something going on in the game consistently and you're like, you see this for sure. Like, it's not just like, oh, you know, we're not doing enough damage. It's probably the guy with the lowest stats, right? He's the problem. No, what I mean is like, if you see that specific person not doing anything or not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then you look at the stats and they confirm or reassure, whatever you want to call it, what you're thinking and what you saw, then yes, then stats matter in that instance. But as a whole, as like a flat out metric, I feel like stats are meaningless.
That support is doing a great job. Healbotting is not the answer, friends. It's just one facet of supporting.
Where are my rocket mains?
Just really quick, it would mean the world to me if you'd subscribed and liked the video. Genuinely. Okay, that's it. Let's keep going. Moving on, we have Final Blows. This is an interesting one, something Overwatch never included on their scoreboard, and I can see the merit of knowing who finished off their elims, but again, this is not telling the whole story. If someone happens to do the majority of the damage, only to have their elim finished off by someone else, that player is left in the dust, with only an elim and damage to show for it. and we already addressed why both of those stats are awful. You could argue it's only when combining all three of these stats that we can understand anything, but do you actually have a formula that can make any sense beyond a guess? Even if you did, there's no way for that formula to differentiate between a situation where you almost completely won a 1v1 that swung a fight, only for it to be finished off by a stray bullet from a teammate.
Like I said, stats are just a reassurance metric. They are just like to clarify what you saw in your match or to clarify what you watch if you rewatch and spectate. Like, that's my opinion.
And you shooting Thor on cooldown. The scoreboard can't do this. Next on our list is damage blocked. If Overwatch is any indication, nobody on the planet cares about this stat. While I do think it's silly that it's treated any worse than damage or elims or any other stat, it's true that this stat is, again, terrible. There is a massive difference, for example, between the Groot that just throws up walls every second and blocks damage with each of them, and the Groot who makes chokes incredibly difficult for enemies and defends key angles for his team. Just because the first Groot gets more damage blocked doesn't mean he's any better. Wasting your walls or damage reduction at meaningless times is throwing, not...
See, for me, like, these stats only really matter if we're doing good in the game. Like, say I'm Groot in this sense, and I'm setting up these chokes, I'm killing people with my walls, I'm holding the line, not letting them leave their spawn or whatever the case is, because I've done that so many times, they just don't even, like, get out of their spawn. And then I see my damage blocked is, like, 60k. Like, that is, like, euphoric, because it's like, dude, not only am I playing crazy, but I have the numbers to back it up. Like, I think that's the only thing I really like about stats, and that's the only time that, like, I'm, like, glazing people on their stats. Like, it's like when you see someone doing crazy stuff in your game, and then you also see their stats are crazy, I think that's cool. But at the end of the day, I think stats are just kind of toxic and they don't really benefit the game. Like, they're just kind of like, ooh, that's cool. But at the end of the day, if we didn't have them, I think there would be a lot less flaming and a lot less toxic behavior and a lot more teamwork. And I also feel like the game should, like, I don't know how the games can do this. Like, I don't know why people can't get it through their head that these team games are objective based and it's not TDM. Like, yes, there's a TDM mode, go play that mode if that's what you're looking for.
Carrying, but the scoreboard can't see the difference. Last and honestly least, we have accuracy. I literally don't know why I even need to talk about this one, but here, I'll just say
this. Like, no one even egos it.
If you aren't constantly shooting walls, the floor, spawn, your teammates, everything, then you're a psychopath and you need to be put on a watch list. That's all. So where do we go from here? Well, we need to address the way people look at the scoreboard and why it's harmful to the game. Players often cite the scoreboard when things are going wrong, but they use it in such baffling ways. Oh, our tank is 0 and 4, no wonder we're losing. Let's quickly put aside the fact that 90% of people quoting stats on the scoreboard are literally ignoring the majority of the few stats that are even there, but let's think about this instead. Perhaps your tank is just making as much space as he can, and the only reason it's not leading to any kills is that your damage players are on some other planet having a 1v1.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's great that your Spider-Man is 2 and 0 right now, but he's only killed the enemy Namor twice, and hasn't actually done anything else beyond swing back to spawn or hide in a corner. Just because one of these players' KDAs is better doesn't even remotely explain the whole picture to what's going on. Even if this isn't your favorite example, there are infinite examples where the scoreboard is absolutely unusable for the only thing anyone actually uses it for, trying to understand player worth and thus blame a teammate for their loss. Nothing about this scoreboard can actually help you understand what is happening during a match accurately, unless someone is very obviously lagging or just mentally AFK. And the way players even use the scoreboard is even worse given they ignore the majority of it. None of these stats are any good, and just because you leave out half of them when you blame someone doesn't mean those stats are trash, it just means you're using different trash stats with even less comprehension. The only system that has ever done a good job of accurately measuring player worth in a game of this style is in Overwatch. Yes, you heard me right, but it's not what you're thinking. Unless you've seen my fire meter video, but in that case you could tell from the very start where this video was going. Overwatch 1's fire meter was the best score-like tool there was in a game like this. and yet Blizzard changed it to be worse, and still to this day hasn't put it on the scoreboard, despite my pleas. If you want to understand why the fire system was perfect for this kind of thing, you should go and watch that video for the actual details. But if you're too lazy, I'll summarize it like this. The fire meter is not easily manipulated by things that don't benefit your team, like Rival's scoreboard is, and the fire meter actually adds the different ways players contribute together so that you don't have to pretend you can do that math for yourself on the fly. If you want to dispute either of those claims, no, you're wrong. Again, go watch that video. The fire system wasn't nearly perfect, but it was really good. I hate that I have to say this again, but if Marvel Rivals wants to foster a healthier community with a better understanding of stats and how to improve, they need their own fire system, and it needs to be on the scoreboard. If Rivals wants yet another leg up on Overwatch in this race, this would be an awesome addition. In the meantime, if you are ever wondering why you lost your match, don't look at the scoreboard for all the answers.
Just go spectate the game.
Sure, it can help a bit, but it's not going to tell you the truth. Thank you so much for watching this.
I'm going to be real with you guys. If you really want to win your games, if you really want to, rank up and be better, stop looking at stats and start just communicating with your team. Use your voice chat, use your comms. If for some ungodly reason you don't have a mic, go buy one. Like, text until you can buy one, but buy one. Like, there's no reason you should not have a mic if you have a freaking gaming computer that can run Marvel Rivals. Because you need to have a decent computer to be able to run this game. So, and then after that, you need to rewatch your games. If you actually are serious about ranking up and you're not just playing to get to gold, to get the skin, you need to rewatch your games, or you're not going to rank up, or have the awareness to see what everything is going on and, see where everything is going wrong. You got to have one or the other, or both, depending on, what you want to do and how you learn and all that stuff. And you have to admit when you're doing bad and when you're wrong, and you need to switch, or you need to do whatever you need to do for your team to win. It is not about you. It is not about your stats. It's not about your KDA. It's about the win. That's all that matters. You could have zero. You could be 0-20, but why do you care if you get that win and you're going up to plat or gold or diamond or grandmaster or whatever you are? You know what I'm saying? Like, why do you care? You should not care. Now, for friggin' Rivals, they just need to get rid of the stat board. It's useless. It doesn't help you with anything. It doesn't actually show you anything meaningful. It doesn't show you what people are actually doing on your team. It's just a numbers game that is easily manipulated, and it's a stupid metric system. They should just get rid of it. If anything, like, I don't even know, is there even a point of keeping eliminations? Like, the only thing I could think of is, like, just showing people's kills and assists, and that's it. But, like, that's about it. Like, that's the only thing I could think of. But even then, I don't even think there should be a scoreboard. Like, there's just no point. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it literally tells you nothing. Like I said, maybe they keep the kills, deaths, assists, and that's it. But besides that, the damage thing, that doesn't help. Damage block, that doesn't help. Like, all this stuff doesn't help. This is just ego farming and creating a toxic environment. That's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Hope you guys liked the video. Remember to check out Stedo Mari. There'll be a link in the below for their channel, as always, in the description. Remember to like and subscribe to me. See you guys next one. Peace.